It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222, your emails at randykabc@gmail.com, and search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts. It doesn't matter if it's a local elected official, a countywide elected official, or a state elected official. I would say 9 out of 10 of them will tell you the number one problem in this state is housing. Doesn't matter who it is that's running for governor, they're all Democrat candidates, independent candidates, Republican candidates, all going to say the number one issue in this state is housing, the cost of living. And the most important piece of a cost of living isn't just things like gasoline and beef prices. No, it is how much it costs to live here, whether that's in paying rent or being lucky enough to own a home. And even though we have had politicians who have said this is the number one issue for nearly a decade, well, housing costs just keep going up. Now, there is a little debate as to whether there really is a massive housing shortage, because you do see a lot of vacant spaces when you drive around. They might not necessarily be vacant homes or vacant apartments, but there's a hell of a lot of vacant retail out there. We do stories probably every few months on abandoned buildings that are out there, and that's a small element to it. But ultimately, I think most people would agree this state needs to make it easier to build more. And you'll hear the term housing all the time. What you won't hear is build what kind of housing. And that's where I see the debate of SB79 really interesting for me. Because the idea of SB79, which is a bill that is going through the legislature right now, it might pass, it might not pass. It's written by Scott Wiener, and it's something Scott Wiener has tried to put forth in many different versions over the years. But what it says is forget all of the local zoning, which in LA would mean forget the LA City Council being able to approve or deny projects on their whim, or I don't know, if they're getting bribed. Any tract of land, any development that's within a quarter mile of a transit hub is automatically upzoned to be a tall 4, 5, 6-story building. Now, what is a transit hub? That could mean a bus stop. And you know what? I happen to live in a single-family neighborhood that is pretty close to a bus stop. I would say it's less than a quarter mile. But it is interesting to me how with all of these bills, and this is very similar to, what was it, SB9 going back to 2020, where pretty much it's state law now. If you apply for the permit, you can take your single family home and you can turn it into a duplex, a triplex, or a quadplex. Not a whole lot of people have taken them up on that because it's so expensive. We've seen a lot more people do the expedited ADU, and we've seen everything that's going on with ADU permitting in places like San Diego, where they have all these bonuses for developers and you don't have to build parking. But the thing that I always find interesting with all of these bills that are supposed to increase the housing stock, like SB79, is that they're kind of almost designated to take single-family homes or maybe some derelict commercial space and zone that for apartment buildings. And you almost never see any project get approved anymore that builds the kind of single-family home that I'm broadcasting from right now. And there's quite a few reasons for that. It has gotten so expensive here to build, whether that's the cost of labor, the cost of materials, or the cost of land, because it is so expensive, because the process is so onerous, that when a project goes through, the only way it can be profitable is to build, if you are building a single family home, it's definitely not a single story home. It's a bigger home than that. So already you're priced out of the starter homes can't be built anymore. And if we do build apartment buildings, well, there's all these local programs that will say, we'll give you all kinds of tax breaks if you build affordable housing. Now, when you hear the term affordable housing, you might think, okay, that means that they're going to build an entire building full of studio apartments, like the one I lived in for 8 years in Valley Village. But that's not what they build. What they build are luxury apartments because they need to make money on how much it costs to build the thing. And luxury, I'm using air quotes with, because I find the whole term luxury apartment to be an oxymoron. There's nothing that luxurious about sharing a wall, and a lot of the amenities they're a little bit more facades than anything else. And people that have money and have choices would rather be in a home, at least in my opinion. But those apartments, they don't build little tiny cheap units on the first floor. That's not how the affordable housing works. They build a building full of all kinds of units, and the government will subsidize the first floor and pay for a portion of the rent for that affordable housing. That model doesn't make any sense to me. And what, again, I find interesting about all of this, because of how expensive it is to build here, even if we cut through the red tape and deal with all this zoning reform, the thing that does not get built is the starter home neighborhood like the one I'm broadcasting from. A neighborhood built in 1957 with mostly 3-bedroom homes. You don't see that being built. You see large HOA developments, or you'll see, if it's not that, it's townhouses, which is just apartments with stairs, or it's apartment buildings. And if people are still looking for single-family homes, well, they haven't built any new ones, and they're occasionally tearing some down to build all this other nonsense. So the price of a starter home keeps going up, which is why a 3-bedroom house in the San Fernando Valley now goes for $900,000. I don't know how we fix that. I don't know what kind of legislation fixes that. Do you have to lower the labor costs? Well, developers already do that. We've heard so many admissions over the last few weeks that a vast majority of the construction labor force are people in the country illegally. And that's not because there are people that don't want to do construction jobs. It's because developers, or because of the cost margins, don't want to pay the mandated union workforce. So they go under the table. I guess that's what's happening. I'm not an expert here. But let's go ahead and dive into the debate on SB79. Because yes, we need a whole bunch of more housing, but is this the way to do it? Is this the way to increase the housing stock by taking away zoning power and the approvals process from local government? City of Los Angeles, nothing would make me happier than to take power away from the LA City Council. But giving that power to Sacramento, I don't know. Let's find out. There was a big rally over the weekend in San Diego. Let's hear what both sides have to say about SB 79. Here is CBS 8 in San Diego.
Alex, thank you. A bill working its way through Sacramento could clear the way for 6-story or even taller housing complexes in single-family home neighborhoods. But this contentious plan to boost housing density,
I don't know why they have to be 6 stories. You know, I think people could agree with like 3 stories. But no, let's build everything super tall, and then because it's near transit, not build parking and just see what happens.
This contentious plan to boost housing density near train and rapid bus lines across California has ignited a heated debate among lawmakers, local officials, and community groups.
Sponsored by Senator Scott Wiener, this legislation known as SB79 is designed to address the state's housing crisis by mandating upzoning within a quarter to half mile of transit hubs.
So, if your neighborhood is zoned for single-family homes, in order to change that, it's got to go through your local member of the city council, and they have to vote on it. It's a whole thing. And there's a lot of pushback because of community input. There's a lot of neighborhoods that don't want a 6-story tower in the middle of their neighborhood, and that doesn't make them NIMBYs. This would completely change that. It would mean that there is no single-family zoning, because show me one part of Los Angeles that's not near a bus stop. And it would mean that any tract of single-family housing, like, I don't know, the 1,600 square foot lot that I'm on right now, not very big, it's a radio salary, this could be transformed into a 6-story tower. Is that going to solve the problem?
Supporters call it essential, while critics warn it threatens local control, affordability, and could displace neighborhoods. Today, I spoke with both sides to learn more.
California Senate Bill 79 would set height limits based on the level of service at the transit stop. The buildings could be up to 75 feet tall or even higher in some cases, with a density of up to 120 units per acre.
120 units per acre? My goodness.
The limits of...
there are homes in Texas where you're living on 1 acre for one family.
The limits apply within a quarter mile of the transit stop, with different lower limits applying further out.
Again, maybe it's different in certain parts of the state, but in a place like Los Angeles, even the whole county, isn't everywhere a quarter mile from a bus stop?
Further out.
Go on 79! Go on 79!
Neighbors for a Better San Diego took part in a statewide protest Saturday organized by Neighbors for a Better California.
Here's a bus stop.
They say that SB 79's language is vague around bus routes, and that the lack of precision could allow developers to exploit ambiguities, undermining the bill's intent.
You mean like they did in San Diego, where they started building 6-story ADUs with no parking because, well, they allowed it in the law?
And that bus stop can be anything from...
And by the way, I love the idea of ADUs. I love it. As long as you build the adequate parking, you have the adequate utilities. If you're not using a backyard and you have space to put in a small place and you can rent it out, or even in San Jose, now you can split the subdivision. You can sell that tract of land as its own home. But what we've seen so far, much like the luxury apartments that get built when they demolish a single family home, is the ADUs that got constructed in a place like San Diego are still going for like $3,000 a month. Like, when does quote unquote affordable housing get affordable? And we're not talking about the subsidized housing that the government helps pay for.
And that bus stop can be anything from just 15-minute frequency in the high in morning and evening. That will qualify as a bus stop. That 500 homes or a half mile around that area, the height now can go up to 6 to 8, even 9 stories.
But not everyone is opposed to the bill. Organizations like Our Time to Act tell me that this is a state bill that is critical for the future of California.
SB 79's critical implementation and allowance of apartment buildings to be built near high-frequency transit will allow for not only necessary housing to be built, but it will also kind of serve to start to curb the really severe car dependence that we have in California.
Okay, that's just some wishful thinking. Let's take a place like Los Angeles County. There are even some sites that I think should completely be rezoned for these kinds of buildings. Specifically, if you've ever been in the Van Nuys Lake Balboa area, There is a corner, an intersection, Woodley and Victory. On the other side of it is Balboa Park and Woodley Park. And there's a shopping center on one side. It used to be the Vallarta. Then they moved to a much better location where the Toys R Us used to be. Then the 99-cent store moved in and, well, nobody bought anything there, so that went out. Now it's some Super King market, and they got a bunch of local businesses. On the other side is one of these properties that is just always going out of business. Every restaurant that's moved in there, out of business. The main piece of property is zoned to be a pot store, keeps going out of business. The only thing that seems to make any money in that little shopping center on the corner of Victory and Woodley is a Leo's taco truck, because people love their al pastor. But that is a site that would be perfect since it's right next to the Orange Line and right next to a big park. Okay, maybe that is where you could rezone that commercial space that is useless because everyone who rents there goes out of business and turn that into some kind of tower. But they don't do that. Instead, they want to demolish more single-family homes to create more towers, which then will drive up the cost of single-family homes because, like I said at the beginning here, the kind of house that I'm in now, they can't build anymore. It's not cost effective, and that's a massive problem.
Nicole Lilly also tells me that SB79 ensures that buildings using the bill provide subsidized affordable homes.
I'm so glad. CBS 8, great job. You hear the term affordable housing all the time, but do you rarely hear them use the other word?
Provide subsidized affordable homes.
Because again, it's not that they're building little bachelor pads in the basement. It's not that they're building little 600 square foot single room occupancies, and those are the affordable units. Nope. It's the same units in the entire building. We're just having the government, through their housing department, subsidize the rent so we can put a homeless person there.
There's an optimistic future that is possible. We can have it. But SB 79 will not get us there.
Community advocate Charlie Nieto says that while he does not fully agree with all of Neighbors for a Better San Diego's stances, he remains opposed to SB 79.
All of it is basically catered to luxury housing, luxury apartments, and specifically rental apartments. And I understand there's an argument that you got to create more supply to lower prices, except you're just not really seeing that housing trickle down.
And this is another thing. You know, as much as we say it's impossible to build here, drive anywhere for 2 miles and tell me you don't see something under construction. There is a lot of building going on here. More than there was 10 years ago, for sure. But do we ever see any of this building amount into prices going down the way we see in Austin right now, where they built so much housing because they thought everyone in San Francisco was going to move there. And then after the offices said, you got to come back to San Francisco, now housing prices are going way down. Rents are down 20%. I don't think we're seeing that because of what we're building. It's so expensive to build it. The only thing we can build is things that people can't afford, which is why in downtown LA, you have in the middle of a housing crisis, 17%, 20%, maybe higher vacancy rate for these luxury towers, which if you give the developer enough clearance to build high enough, it doesn't matter.
And this bill passed the Senate floor in June. Then it passed out of the Assembly Housing and Assembly Local Government Committees. It now awaits further action in the Assembly.
So this bill is still being debated, so we might as well debate it here. You've heard what this bill will do. I'm sure you've heard people talking about it. It's Scott Wiener's SB 79. If this is passed and signed by Gavin Newsom, it would take away all local control for zoning, and anywhere that is a quarter a mile away from a bus stop can automatically be upzoned to a 6-story building. Do you think SB 79 is how we solve the housing crisis in California? I'd love to hear what you think about this, so give me a call right now. 800-222-KABC. 1-800-222-5222. Do you think SB9 is how we solve the housing crisis? Because Scott Wiener seems to think so. 800-222-KABC. 1-800-222-5222. What do you think about SB79, the bill that would automatically upzone anything near a bus stop to a 6-story building? Give me a call right now, 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. We're taking your phone calls right now at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Scott Wiener's SB79 is working its way through the legislature. If passed and signed into law, it would take any home that is within a quarter mile of a bus stop and automatically upzone it to 6 stories. I know we're in a housing crisis, but is this the solution? Give me a call right now, 800-222-KABC. If you're on hold, stay on hold because we're going right to the calls next. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls. And since the phone lines are jammed, let's get right into it as we take your phone calls. Scott Wiener has introduced SB79 to help solve the housing crisis. If passed and signed into law, it would take anywhere that is a quarter mile from a bus stop, whether that be a single family home or what have you, and upzone it to a 6-story building. Is this how we solve the housing crisis? Let's start with Ray in Manhattan Beach. Ray, hello.
Hi. First of all, it's 75 feet within a quarter mile and 55 feet within a half mile. So there's a map of Manhattan Beach I emailed you that virtually the entire city is covered. So a developer can go in there and do anything they want anywhere. The biggest winners of SB 79 are the companies like BlackRock. They're going in there and buying up neighborhoods and buying up all these properties and building them. And they're taking away home ownership. That's their goal because the rents go up over time with inflation. So your rents are always going up. Landlords are always increasing rents. Versus if you buy, while it's hard initially, your payment stays the same forever. So the ultimate rent control is ownership. In Manhattan Beach here, there's 3 7-story apartment buildings going up behind single-family houses, and everybody on that street is selling. Nobody wants a 7-story apartment building in your backyard. And they're, one of the dads was complaining. He goes, stuff could fall on my kids if they're playing. They won't be able to play in the backyard anymore because they're worried about something falling from the construction site. And it blocks all the light and everything else. And people are just livid. And they're not building affordable housing. They're building very, very high-end rentals that they're going to rent at market rate rents and make a fortune on. So it's the corporations are winning. This YIMBY organization, they act like they're this, like grassroots, but they're all funded by Zuckerberg and all these big corporations. And it's a big scam. And they're out there to take away our neighborhoods and the character and everything else. And they're going to absolutely undermine everything going on in our neighborhoods and destroy our neighborhoods because they want everything to be owned. And the reason why houses cost so much is because of all the stuff that California does, like Title 24, makes it incredibly expensive to build a house. I was talking to somebody, they tore down their little 2-bedroom shack and built something. They had to spend $30,000 on a water recapture system to water a 200-square-foot yard. I mean, it's ridiculous. This stuff the government does, and
that's the kind of insanity that we see. And there is proof to what you're saying. We're at a point now where in the state of California, 20% of homes in the state are owned by corporations, which means if this passes, those companies like BlackRock and the other private equity firms that have bought a lot of California real estate can instantly demolish those homes and turn them into towers. And I think that's what they've been planning to do this whole time. Thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. Let's go to Steve in San Diego. Steve, hello.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for the conversation. I don't think it's going to work, this upzoning to 6 stories. We got the same problem down here in San Diego as you guys got up there. And same morons running our city that are running yours. But I wonder, the biologists tell us that a wolf needs so many square miles to survive and be healthy. I wonder what the square mileage for a human being is, and whether we pile all these people on top of one another, we're not creating more and more social ills that we see in our cities with, mental illness, drug abuse, and God knows whatever.
Well, and not only that, you look at what's specifically going on in your community in San Diego, where the city council passed this density bonus law for ADUs, and ADU apartment buildings started getting put up in a whole bunch of backyards. None of them are affordable. They're all like $2,000 to $3,000 for a tiny little ADU. That's not affordable.
Yeah, I live in Pacific Beach, and we got I think 116 unit project going in. It's going to be a nightmare, especially getting in and out of the beach to get to the highway.
Yeah, because, of course, there's not going to be any parking, which they don't need to build because it's near transit. So it's going to clog up all the streets because these people are still going to have cars. And it doesn't seem to really make a whole lot of sense. Thanks so much for the call, Steve. Appreciate it. I mean, maybe they're planning for the future and that, Waymo's going to completely take over and no one's going to own a car. But even if that happens, there are a lot of jobs that you're going to need a car. And we're 20, 30 years away from maybe that being a possibility. Maybe. Let's go to George in Simi Valley. George, hello.
Hi, Randy. Thank you for your leadership. These places, the people behind this thing, like Scott Wiener, I've heard interviews where he talks about how wonderful it is to live in San Francisco. But he doesn't have children. He lives in an apartment. And San Francisco is small and compact. There are buses, there's Muni, and they come along every 2 or 3 minutes. I just went to Boston. It's kind of the same thing. You can walk across the entire part of historic Boston in about an hour to an hour and a half. It's about 2 miles wide. And you've got the Green Line there that comes every 2 minutes. So it doesn't work in Los Angeles where things are spread apart by 20 or 30 miles. Sometimes you have to go that way. And I think they gave it away in that one clip you had where she says the car dominance. There are people who just don't want people in cars. They don't have families. They don't have to tote things around. They go to Europe and they say, oh, isn't this quaint? And they think that's the perfect way, but they don't live there, except for Scott Wiener. And the end goal, I think, is get everyone out of cars, take away your freedom of driving everywhere.
And you know what? That's something that you can do in San Francisco specifically. But Los Angeles is 500 square miles and very few people live where they work. And even if you wanted to take the meager transit that exists now, it's not fast, it's not convenient, let alone the fact that it's not safe. So yeah, this is a lot of nonsense right here. George, thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. Let's go to Margaret in Rosemead. Margaret, hello.
Hello, I'm a mayor in Rosemead. I've been on 34 years. We have been fighting this for years, and they are blaming us for the housing, the high cost of housing, and the homeless. We don't build it. We zone for it. And they took away, we had redevelopment, but Jerry Brown took it away, so we have no funds. They don't give any incentives for the developers to build low-income housing. And one of my passions is I've met a lot of black homeowners in Baldwin Hills where I grew up, and they work their tails off to get the home ownership. And this is going to hurt them. I'm fed up with the majority in Sacramento who claim to be helping the low-income minority. They don't give a rip about them. And this is going to hurt the very people that they claim to help. And we need to write our legislators and watch why they vote for this. I can't believe they will do this, but they will. And it's going to hurt everybody, people that really want to keep their single-family homes. And it's going to take the zoning totally away from us. And you can tell I'm very upset about this.
Well, in a smaller city like yours, I mean, zoning is very important. People probably have a more jaded view of it if you live in the city of LA because the city of LA has been so corrupt when it comes to things like zoning. But when you're in a place like Rosemead, you know intimately what your constituents need. And Scott Wiener does not. And Rosemead is not the Bay Area.
No, absolutely. You're so right. And all your callers are just straight on.
Well, thank you so much
So
for the
thank
call,
you.
and we'll continue to follow this. And if you are upset about this, if might do nothing, it might do something, but write your local member of the Assembly and State Senate because this thing hasn't passed yet. Thanks so much for the call, Ms. Mayor. Appreciate it. Let's go to Don in San Diego. Don, hello.
Hi, how you doing? No, I came to San Diego in 1961. I was 4 years old, and I've seen how the city has changed so much. Traffic has gotten atrocious. I'm a drywall contractor, 48 years in the trade, 38 years, almost 39 years in business. I don't even touch apartment complexes because it's such a cheap price to give to a contractor, and there's such pressure on it. If you mess up at all, you're going to get your butt handed to you, and you'll lose a lot of money. The ADUs, you're right. There's no place for parking here in San Diego. I don't even do ADUs. I do custom homes. But this thing about ADUs, that's right. There's no place to park. And they put them in spots where there's no parking for anybody, and they're going to stack them up there, and they're going to subsidize people to live there. That's freaking ridiculous. Who pays for that? We do, the taxpayers. You know what? San Diego has gotten so bad so far as call it is. It's an invasion from the south of the border. And I'm sorry not to be prejudiced, nothing, because I love everybody, but Latinos don't use birth control, and they have 7 kids every 15 to 18, 13 to 18 years, and it grows and grows and grows. And San Diego has changed so much. It's America's finest city. Not anymore. But
well, I'll definitely agree with you that San Diego has come far down from what it used to be, especially in the last few years. I will say to what you said about certain posh portions of the Latino population, maybe that's your experience with what you've seen, but let me just tell you, there's a bunch of white people in the South that don't use protection and have 10 kids, and we're paying for all that too. 800-222-KABC is the phone number, 1-800-222-5222. Your thoughts on Scott Wiener's SB79. If you're on hold, stay on hold to get to more of your calls next. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Let's go to Michelle in Yorba Linda. Michelle, hello.
Hello. Here's my issue with it, is fires. It takes me 25 to 30 minutes to get out of my neighborhood. If there's a fire evacuation, on the Oak Fire too, it did. My coworker took over an hour to get a mile. If there's fires, the buses aren't coming in to get these people. So how are we all getting them all out?
That is such a good point, and you think that we would know better and think better based on everything that happened on Sunset Boulevard when the Palisades fire broke out, where the traffic was so bad that people literally abandoned their cars. But are we talking about more roads? Are we talking about more neighborhoods? No, we're talking about extra densifying the neighborhoods that we have with the infrastructure that we have, and that could lead to a disaster. You're so right about that. Thank you so much for the call, Michelle. Hey, look at this. 790 KABC welcomes Young the Giant at the Pacific Amphitheater on September 12th. Tickets on sale now at packamp.com. But right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-795-2222 gets a pair of tickets to the show. This is a post-fair show, so it doesn't include admission to the fair because the fair will be over. Tickets furnished by the Pacific Amphitheater. Good luck dialing. If you're on hold, stay on hold to get right back to your calls next. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Thanks for holding, everyone. Let's go to Greg in Santa Ana. Greg, hello.
Hello, Randy. Okay, there is an aspect to the cost of housing that you failed to account for, and that is the increasing cost to maintain insurance. My property insurance on my 4-unit complex doubled this last year. It went up 100%. And then let's see, the cost for electricity, the cost for utilities, water, gas, and electric have gone up in an uncontrolled manner. And then on top of that, the state wants me to do other improvements on the property in order to be able to tax me greater property insurance. ADUs, how many places have done ADUs and they discovered that their property tax goes up exponentially?
Yeah, that is one of those things they don't really tell you about it when you're opening the brochure, but that is so important. I'm glad you talked about insurance and utilities, because when you're constantly increasing those costs, it's not like it's going to be mom and pop landlords like yourself that are going to be in charge of all these buildings that Scott Wiener wants to build. The only ones that can afford it are the big corporations like BlackRock or Blackstone, whichever one it is. Let's go to Farron in Santa Monica. Farron, hello.
Yes. Yes. Hi, how are you? Yeah, I live in Santa Monica, and I was very, very surprised to find out that there are over 90 plus cities who have already, city councils that have opposed SB 79, but only 2 have come out in support of it, West Hollywood and Santa Monica. It staggers me because Santa Monica currently is under a mandate to build 9,000 more units through, I think, 2031. And the other, the main irony is that I've seen the map of the affected areas of Santa Monica, and it essentially would run down through the same geographic area as the 10 freeway. Now, the reason I mention that is because Santa Monica, in its wisdom, has a equity and land back commission, and in that commission, they have recommended that all of the people of color who are displaced by the 10 freeway should, have opportunities to live in Santa Monica again. Well, now they're going to go through the same areas. And once again, they're going to try to displace the very people they say they want to protect. And the guy behind it is Jesse Swick, council member. Thank you.
Not surprising
so
at
listening.
all. Thank you so much for all that information, Farron. We're out of time. Thanks so much for the call. John in Encino. John, you got 20 seconds. Go.
Yeah, real quick. All they want is more property tax revenue, because if they wanted affordable housing, they'd allow tiny homes, which most of California doesn't allow because they don't make enough revenue from it. When you've got a 25-
No, they only want to build those for the homeless, and they don't want to see all the stuff that you see on HGTV. Thank you all so much for this discussion. I'm sure we will talk about this again soon, because this problem ain't going away. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC.